Have you ever thought that a tiny fairy-like girl could become the enemy of her own stepmother just because of her beauty? Is it possible that a mirror that always tells the truth could become a message of death for a queen? This is not just a story. This is a story of endless hatred and dark magic that changes the life of a princess. It is a story of courage, true friendship, and the belief that no matter how powerful evil is, goodness always wins. This is the story of Snow White. Long ago, during a very cold and snowy winter, a kind queen was sitting near the window of her palace and sewing. Suddenly, the needle pricked her finger, and 3 small drops of blood fell onto the white snow outside the window. When the queen saw this, she was amazed. The red drops of blood looked very beautiful on the white snow. Seeing this, a sweet wish was born in the queen's heart. She softly said to herself, "I wish I had a daughter whose skin is as white as snow, whose lips are as red as blood, and whose hair is as black as the wood of this window." Every day, the queen prayed for this wish. She often sat near the window and imagined her future daughter. She thought about how her daughter would look, how they would play together, and how she would tell her lovely stories. After a few months, the queen's wish came true. She gave birth to a very beautiful baby girl. The child was exactly as the queen had wished. Her skin was white like snow, her lips were red like apples, and her hair was thick and black like the night. The king and queen were very happy. They lovingly named their daughter Snow White. The whole palace was filled with joy after Snow White was born. Everyone smiled when they saw the little baby. The king left his work to play with her, and the queen sang lullabies while holding her in her arms. But this happiness did not last long. After some time, the kind queen fell sick and passed away. The king and the entire kingdom were filled with sadness. Little Snow White was left alone without her mother. 1 year passed. The king felt very lonely. He thought Snow White needed a mother, so he married again. The new queen was very beautiful. She had big, attractive eyes, but she was also proud, selfish, and cruel. She was extremely proud of her beauty and did not want anyone to be more beautiful than her. The new queen had a magic mirror that always told the truth. Every morning she stood in front of the mirror, dressed in fine clothes, fixed her hair, and asked proudly, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the most beautiful of all?" The mirror always replied, "My queen, you are the most beautiful." Hearing this made the queen very happy and satisfied. She felt relaxed knowing no one was more beautiful than her. Time passed, and Snow White slowly grew up. She became a very kind, gentle, and sweet girl. She loved animals, talked to flowers, and always helped everyone. As Snow White grew older, she became even more beautiful. Her beauty was like the moon, and her smile bloomed like flowers. Soon she became more beautiful than her stepmother, the queen. One day, as usual, the queen went to her room. She wore her most beautiful necklace and stood in front of the mirror. With pride, she asked, "Mirror, mirror, tell me, who is the most beautiful in the world?" This time, the mirror gave a different answer. It said, "My queen, you are beautiful, that is true. But Snow White is 1,000 times more beautiful than you." Hearing this, the queen's face turned pale. She could not believe her ears. Her eyes turned red with anger and jealousy. Her heart filled with hatred for Snow White. She could not accept that Snow White was more beautiful than her. From that day on, the queen lost her peace. She kept thinking about how to get rid of Snow White. Finally, she made a terrible decision. She called her hunter. The hunter was brave and always obeyed the queen. The queen ordered him, "Take Snow White deep into the forest and kill her. Bring me her heart as proof." The hunter trembled in fear. He knew how innocent and kind Snow White was, but the hunter could not say no to the queen. With a heavy heart, he agreed. The next day, the hunter went to Snow White and said, "Come, let's go for a walk in the forest. I will show you beautiful flowers and butterflies." Snow White became very happy and went with the hunter toward the forest. While walking, they reached a very deep and dark forest. There were tall trees everywhere, and sunlight could not reach the ground. Suddenly, the hunter stopped and took out his knife. When Snow White saw the knife in his hand, she became scared. She understood that the hunter had come to kill her. She started crying and fell at the hunter's feet. With innocence, she said, "Please don't kill me. I promise I will never return to this palace. I will live in this forest forever." Seeing Snow White's tears and her innocence, the hunter's heart melted. He thought, "How can I kill this sweet child?" He threw away his knife and said to Snow White, "All right, child, run away. But remember, never come back." Snow White thanked the hunter and ran deeper into the forest. The hunter then thought about what proof he would give to the queen. Just then, he saw a wild boar nearby. He killed the boar, took out its heart and gave it to the queen. When the queen saw the heart, she was very happy. She believed that Snow White was dead and that she was now the most beautiful woman in the world. Meanwhile, Snow White was alone and frightened in the forest. She kept running and running. She did not know where she was going. Night began to fall and the forest looked even scarier. The shadows of the trees looked like monsters. Strange sounds of animals filled the forest. Snow White became very tired and sat under a tree, crying. Then she saw a small light in the distance. It felt like a ray of hope. She stood up and walked toward the light. After walking for a while, she reached a very small and lovely house. The house was so tiny, like a doll's house. She gathered courage and knocked on the door, but there was no answer. The door was slightly open. Snow White slowly looked inside. Everything inside was small, neat, and clean. In the middle, there was a small table. On it were 7 small plates, 7 small glasses, and 7 tiny spoons. Each plate had a little food, and each glass had a little water. Snow White was very hungry and thirsty. She took just 1 small bite from each plate, and 1 sip from each glass, so that no one's food would be finished. Soon she felt sleepy. She saw small beds lined up against the wall. Each bed had a soft mattress and a pretty blanket. She tried the first bed, but it was too small. Then she tried the second bed. It was also too small. One by one, she checked all the beds. Finally, the 7th bed was just right. She lay down on it and fell into a deep sleep. This house belonged to 7 dwarfs. All 7 dwarfs worked in the mountains all day, mining gold and silver, and returned home at night. When night came, the 7 dwarfs returned home, holding small lanterns in their hands. As soon as they entered, they felt something was wrong. The first dwarf said, "Someone sat on my chair." The second said, "Someone ate from my plate." The third said, "Someone drank from my glass." The fourth said, "Yes, a piece of my bread is missing." They were all surprised and wondered who had come into their house. Then they went toward their beds. One by one, they saw that someone was lying on their beds. When the 7th dwarf reached his bed, he saw in the light of his lantern, a very beautiful girl sleeping there. He quietly called the others and said, "Come here and look." All 7 dwarfs stood around Snow White's bed. They were amazed by her beauty. She looked so sweet that they decided not to wake her. They agreed to let her sleep peacefully. The 7th dwarf, whose bed Snow White was using, slept a little with his friends. The next morning, when Snow White woke up, she saw 7 little men standing around her. At first she was frightened, but the dwarfs smiled and said, "Don't be afraid. We won't hurt you. Who are you, and how did you come to our house?" Snow White gathered courage and told them her whole story. She told them how her stepmother wanted to kill her, and how the hunter let her go. Hearing her story, the dwarfs felt very sad. They talked among themselves, and then the eldest dwarf said, "Look, if you keep our house clean, cook food for us and take care of us, you can live here with us. We will protect you." Snow White felt very happy and agreed at once. From that day, Snow White lived with the 7 dwarfs. Every morning, she cleaned the house and cooked delicious food for them. When the dwarfs went to work, she happily waved them goodbye. The dwarfs also began to love Snow White very much. Every day before going to work, the dwarfs warned her, "Snow White, take care of yourself. Do not open the door for any stranger. If your stepmother finds out that you are alive, she will come after you." In the palace, the queen believed that she was now the most beautiful. After a few days, she again stood in front of her magic mirror and asked, "Mirror, mirror, tell me now, who is the most beautiful?" The mirror replied, "My queen, you are the most beautiful here, but beyond the 7 mountains in the house of the 7 dwarfs, Snow White is 1,000 times more beautiful than you." Hearing this, the queen's anger reached the sky. She understood that the hunter had betrayed her. She decided that this time she would kill Snow White herself. The queen changed her appearance. She became an old woman. She wore torn, old clothes and made wrinkles on her face. Then she put beautiful, colorful ribbons in a basket and walked toward the dwarf's house. When she reached there, she called from the door, "Colorful ribbons for sale." Beautiful Snow White looked out of the window. She felt sorry for the old woman. She remembered what the dwarfs had warned her about, but then she thought, what harm is there in letting this poor old woman inside? She opened the door. The old woman came inside and said, "Oh my, what a lovely girl you are. Let me tie this beautiful ribbon on your dress." Snow White agreed. The queen took the ribbon and tied it so tightly around Snow White's waist that Snow White could not breathe. She fainted and fell to the ground. The queen laughed loudly and ran away. In the evening, when the dwarfs returned home, they saw Snow White lying on the ground. They became very scared. They quickly cut the tight ribbon. As soon as the ribbon loosened, Snow White took a deep breath and opened her eyes. Bono gave her some water and explained that the old woman was none other than her stepmother. The next day, the queen again went to her mirror and asked, "Mirror, mirror, tell me now, who is the most beautiful?" The mirror gave the same answer, "Snow White, who lives in the dwarf's house, is the most beautiful." The queen became mad with anger. This time she made an even more dangerous plan. She made a poisonous comb. Then she changed her disguise again and came to the dwarf's house as another old woman. She called out, "Beautiful combs for sale, magical combs for your hair." Snow White did not open the door. She said through the window, "No, grandmother, I don't need anything. I cannot let anyone inside." The queen replied sweetly, "That's fine, dear. Just take a look at this beautiful comb." The comb was truly very beautiful. Snow White could not control herself. She leaned out of the window. As soon as the queen put the poisonous comb in Snow White's hair, the poison spread through her body, and Snow White fainted again. In the evening, when the dwarfs returned, they found Snow White unconscious once more. They saw a strange comb in her hair. They quickly removed it and threw it away. After a short while, Snow White regained consciousness. Bono scolded her and said, "Didn't we tell you? Now promise that you will never open the door for anyone." Snow White promised, crying. When the queen learned from the mirror that Snow White was still alive, she thought that this time she would do something from which Snow White would not survive. She made a very dangerous plan. She went to her secret room and made an apple. The apple was half white and half red and looked very tasty, but the queen mixed strong poison into the red half. This time she disguised herself as a farmer woman and walked toward the dwarf's house with a basket full of apples. She called out, "Fresh, sweet apples for sale." Snow White said from the window, "No, I don't need anything. I cannot open the door." The queen, pretending to be a farmer, said sweetly, "Oh, it's okay, dear. You don't trust me. Look, I will cut the apple into 2 pieces. I will eat the white part, and you can eat the beautiful red part." Saying this, the queen ate the white part of the apple. When Snow White saw that nothing happened to the woman, she believed everything was safe. She reached out from the window and took the red piece of the apple. As soon as Snow White took the first bite, she fell to the ground. This time the poison was very strong. The queen laughed loudly and said, "Now no one can save you." Then she left. In the evening, when the dwarfs returned home, they found Snow White lying on the ground dead. They tried to lift her. They sprinkled water on her face, but nothing happened. She was not breathing. The dwarfs understood that this time they had truly lost their dear Snow White. They cried for 3 days and 3 nights. They did not want to bury her because she still looked very beautiful, as if she were just sleeping. They made a glass coffin for her. They dressed Snow White in beautiful clothes and laid her inside the coffin. On the coffin they wrote in golden letters, "This is Snow White, a king's daughter." They placed the coffin on the top of a mountain and took turns guarding it. In the palace, when the queen asked her mirror again, the mirror said, "My queen, now you are the most beautiful." Hearing this, the queen finally felt peace. Many years passed. One day, a prince came to that forest to hunt. While wandering, he reached the mountain where Snow White's coffin was kept. When he saw Snow White sleeping inside the glass coffin, he could not take his eyes off her. He fell in love with Snow White at first sight. He asked the dwarfs, "Who is she? She is so beautiful, like a fairy." The dwarfs told him the whole story. The prince begged them, "Please let me take this coffin with me. I promise I will always respect her. I cannot live without her." At first, the dwarfs refused, but when they saw true love in the prince's eyes, their hearts melted. They allowed him to take the coffin. The prince asked his servants to lift the coffin. While carrying the heavy coffin down the mountain, one servant's foot got stuck on a tree root, and he stumbled. Because of the shock, the coffin shook strongly. Due to the shaking, the poisonous piece of apple that was stuck in Snow White's throat came out. Suddenly, Snow White opened her eyes. She sat up and said, "Where am I?" The prince was overjoyed. He ran to Snow White, held her hand, and said, "You are safe now. I am a prince. Will you come with me to my palace and become my queen?" When Snow White saw the prince, she liked him too. She smiled and said yes. The prince took Snow White to his palace. Great preparations were made for their wedding. Kings and queens from faraway lands were invited. Snow White's stepmother, the proud queen, also received an invitation. When the queen was getting ready for the wedding, as usual she asked the mirror, "Mirror, mirror, tell me the truth, who is the most beautiful?" The mirror replied, "My queen, you are beautiful, but the new queen is 1,000 times more beautiful than you." Hearing this, the queen became furious. She wanted to see who this new queen was. Filled with jealousy and anger, she went to the wedding. As soon as she saw Snow White as the bride, she was frozen with fear and shock. She was punished for her evil deeds. She was made to wear red, hot iron shoes and forced to dance in front of everyone. She screamed in pain, fell down, and never got up again. After that, Snow White and the prince ruled happily forever. They treated their people with love and kindness. The 7 dwarfs often visited the palace, and they were always welcomed as royal guests. Jealousy and hatred always lead to a bad ending, while goodness and kindness always win. If you like this story, please like the video and subscribe to the channel.